guess one thing I'm really curious about is you have all this amazing experience with yoga and with rediscovering your body and probably a connection to yourself even through the pain that you've experienced that, I mean, personally, I can say for myself that I definitely don't, I don't even think I can imagine what that would be like. Do you find that there's anything that, like any aspect of your practice that you've come into now that you kind of wish you had when you were first starting, like something that you kind of feel like a teacher had been a little bit more like, this is so important, like anything that like that you would have to offer the viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Really, Benjamin Franklin sums it up so beautifully when he says that comparison is the thief to happiness. And even one of my teachers, Bernie Clark in Vancouver, he used to joke saying, you won't get any more flexible by mirroring your neighbor. Right. And it's so true because we all are put together so differently, and we all, for different reasons, have different body types and different issues, and we step onto our mats for different circumstances and at different places in our lives. And it's so easy to look to the person to the left and assume because they got their foot behind their head that they're better than you, or that they're more capable than you, or that they're an advanced yogi, or look to the opposite side and see that perfectly graceful, gorgeous figured woman and assume that she's got it all together, when in reality we really don't know what someone's going through, and just because they can put their foot behind their head doesn't necessarily mean that they're an advanced yogi. It means that they have a good range of motion and they're pretty flexible, but that doesn't mean that I'm less than.
Yeah.
Really I see with people is that moment where they're measuring their self-worth. And they're doing it for different reasons. So they're doing it for, maybe they're measuring their self-worth in how deep they go in the splits, or how deep whether they can get their heels down in downward facing dog, or they're measuring their self-worth by comparing themselves to the person next to them, or even to the teacher that's leading them. Right. And I find even in a teaching setting, that there is this comparison from teachers feeling like, well, she teaches in this way and has these many students that show up every week. And so then that means I'm not good enough because I don't teach that way and I don't have that many students. Or, this person can press up into handstand and I'm not there yet. So maybe I'm not as good of a teacher. And so there's this almost this moment where you're comparing, like you have something to prove. And that really, has been something that I've consciously had to work on. And I still find myself continuing to work on it, that I am good enough the way that I am. Yeah. And I'm right. Yeah, right where I'm supposed to be.
Absolutely. And so that's kind of, I guess how you feel that some people go wrong, if we want to say right and wrong, but that some people could, be course corrected in their practice is to not compare so much. What do you feel is something that is the real, I guess we're on the subject of right and wrong, so why not dive right into it? What do you feel is the right way to practice yoga?
Yeah. It's such a powerful question.
Yeah.
The right way to practice yoga. Honestly, we all find or come to yoga for different reasons. So I had a girlfriend once and she said, I'm coming to yoga because I want arms like Madonna. And I laughed at first. And then I thought, you know what? But really, that's okay. And some of us come to yoga for the physical practice to begin. And some of us come to yoga because it's that outlet from a stressful day at work. And so it's that mental release or that emotional, energetic release. And then some people come because they're fascinated about the history of this practice and they want to dive more into the philosophy, into the more esocentric sort of ideas that are really deeply rooted in this practice. And what I've learned to know that it doesn't necessarily matter where you begin, because eventually we all meet up at the same road. We all connect in the same path, where we start to see that modern day yoga is very much focused on the physical practice, about the asana, the postures, But once we start to get to this place, the center point, we see that the physical practice is actually a vessel into a deeper place within inside of ourselves,
Right.
a deeper remembering of who we truly are as beings, as auspicious beings, full of consciousness. And even there, for some, that might be like, ooh, that might be like getting really
way too much.
Yeah. But for me, this is where I feel the essence of yoga comes from, is the recognition of who we are.
So kind of if you had have known, or maybe like been able to have the message of not comparing yourself, but maybe understanding, like getting out of that whole mode of thinking and understanding more that it's not about the posture and it's not about really what anyone else is doing, but it's really about coming into yourself and getting into your body, and then having that be almost a passageway to something deeper, whether, whatever the viewers, whatever they believe in, whether that's, a higher self or whether that's God or whatever that looks like. I think that's very, very good information for anybody starting out. Right? Because it's kind of like, okay, I want to go to yoga class because I see a calendar of some teacher in Standing Bow. And I think, a lot of people probably appreciate hearing that before they go. And it's like, well, you know what? You can look good in Standing Bow, but there's also just so much more that you can get from this practice.
Yeah. A lot of the times yoga is referred to as like a mind, body, spirit practice. Mm-hmm. And I've actually pulled away from referring to that, because when we put those into 3 different categories, then we're consciously labeling them as 3 different things.
Yeah, interesting.
And what I believe now is that the practice of yoga, when we get to that place, when we're ready for it, really, we start to see that it's not about connecting these 3 aspects of ourselves. It's about remembering that we're connected, that these aspects of ourself, our big S self, are already connected. And so it's a matter of honoring those areas or those aspects of us throughout the practice. So it's recognizing and reclaiming the body. It's being thoughtful and conscious and aware of the thoughts in the mind and the fluctuations, the distractions of the mind. And then it's about, through that process, acknowledging the self, even acknowledging the ego as a part of the self. But that distinguishing those 2.
Nice. You're like, I'm a teacher. Just get up there and say it to the world. That's awesome. So on a bit of a different note, because I talk a lot about food and a lot about food in relation to body and obviously lots of yoga stuff as well. What's your food philosophy, Lauren?
Yeah, well, because I went through years of digestive problems. So ulcerative colitis is inflammation in your colon. Mm-hmm. And I was diagnosed with that around the time I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, around the time I found yoga, which is about 2001. Wow. And I spent just under 10 years really going on and off medication and going in and out of hospitals and getting lots of different scopes and seeing lots of different specialists, including naturopathic doctors and Ayurvedic doctors. And I learned along this way a lot of different things. One, that I had some food sensitivities. I definitely am allergic to dairy, and I'm okay with gluten, which took a while to figure out. And too much sugar triggers me, which I hear is pretty normal, but for me, I needed to know that. I definitely have a little bit of a sweet tooth. Okay, that's a little sort of claim there. And so for me, it was going through this process of learning about the food and learning about how my body processed food and what fit well and how did I feel after that and how did it work throughout my day that got me to this conclusion, which was that I definitely eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm full. And that's okay, even if that means that I don't finish my meal completely in that moment, that's okay, that's really important. Also that if I have like a piece of toast at breakfast, I don't generally have another piece of toast at bread. That's just doesn't sit very well with me. So it's very much like a moderation diet. Mm-hmm. I have a sweet tooth, so I allow myself to have a treat. Mm-hmm. That's important. But I love fresh, home cooked, made from scratch food. So if I'm going to have a cookie, it's most likely one of my mom's baked cookies that she's made from scratch. And that just sits really well with me.
Nice.
And, lots of leafy greens, and I eat meat, which, I'm really conscious when I eat meat of where the animal has come from, how they have been treated. So I'm very familiar with my butcher, and we talk a lot about that. I only really go to one butcher in town to get my meat. And I love to eat, so I love to cook, and I think that's okay. For me at this point, I'm completely medication free, and my ulcerative colitis is in full remission because of my dedication to just really questioning not only the food that I'm eating, but my relationship with my food.
Yeah. So it's huge. It's funny because I think a lot of people get almost kind of weirded out by that term, but it's so, your relationship with food is so incredibly important. It's like, I know people talk about it a lot, but people who have, say, issues with food, people who don't stop when they're hungry, or people who don't conversely eat when they're hungry, it's not like drugs or alcohol, right? It's like if you have a problem with drugs or alcohol, you can abstain, but you can't abstain from food, right? So it's so important to have that balanced relationship, and that's awesome. I'm really glad that you found that. And isn't it amazing how the adversity, and it's funny because I just feel so humbled by what you've been through, to be completely honest. I'm just like, wow, the adversity and the intense trauma that you experienced, and how that led you into this relationship with food that was actually conducive to, not having pain, and conducive to your digestion and helping you with your yoga postures and everything.
Yeah, I swear, absolutely swear. So when I first started to look into food, and I was introduced into probiotics, which I really helped a lot. But as I moved further on in my understanding of food, I also was then introduced into fermented food, and how fermented food has a natural form of probiotics. It's way cheaper than those pills you get in a thing that I actually heard aren't always alive because of the shipment that they've had to go through, that some of the probiotics that we're buying aren't even live. So I eat, I'm like so strict, and I'm totally in love with fermented foods. So I eat a cup of fermented foods every single day. Nice. And it's made like immense, huge difference in my life and my digestive system. So if there's anyone out there that's got it, you've heard from me, and I bet Jen's got lots of great recipes and cool things that she can post on that about fermented foods and how much it's made a difference in my life. Raw. You got to make sure it's raw.
Any thoughts you would like to share with the viewers on creating peace and hotness?
Yeah. When my husband and I go away, and since we've had our daughter, generally every year we get like 3 days where my mom will take my daughter, and we get a 3 little long weekend together. And whenever I go, I remember how important that connection is. And when I remember how important that connection is, I remember how important I am in the relationship in building connection. And when I remember how important I am, I then remember how valuable and worthy it is to spend time with myself, and to know that the relationship that I build with myself is really, at the end of the day, the most important relationship I'll ever have. So whatever it may mean for you,
Amen, sister.
Like, I know, right? Amen. Hallelujah. Whatever that may look like for you, or for any of the viewers, whether that's, spending time in meditation, whether that's going to a yoga class or a gym class, or just getting out for a walk, or going for a run or a cycle, whether that's being, conscious of the food that you put in your mouth, or the things that you say and the books that you read, but that we are really seeing that this self within us is hugely important, and what we are doing for ourselves matters not only for us, but for all of those closest to us. So your presence is really sort of where our wealth resides.
Let's finish on that. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Lauren. And if you have a story that you want to share, or you have any questions, or, something funky you want to bring onto Jenny TV, then please email me. My email is in the link following this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.